The communication room aboard the starship Indomitable hummed with quiet activity. Commander Sarah Chen sat at her desk, reviewing supply reports when the emergency frequency crackled to life. The sound made every officer on the bridge freeze. "This is Zalani Prime calling all Council forces. Please respond. We need immediate help." The voice belonged to Ambassador Veltar, but Sarah barely recognized it. The Zalani were known throughout the galaxy for their calm, musical voices. They were a peaceful people who had never raised weapons against anyone. But now Veltar's voice shook with raw terror. "Unknown ships have appeared in our system. They are massive, geometric vessels unlike anything in our databases. We have tried all communication protocols, but they do not respond to any signals." Sarah stood up quickly, her chair sliding back across the metal floor. She had served with Zalani crews before. They were gentle beings who saw beauty in everything, even in humanity's violent past. When most of the galaxy had been horrified to learn that humans came from a death world, the Zalani had welcomed them with open arms. "They are scanning our planet with some kind of energy beam," Veltar continued, his voice breaking. "The readings are unlike anything we have ever seen. The energy levels are enormous. We fear what they might do next." Lieutenant Torres looked up from her station, her face pale. "Commander, I'm reading 12 massive contacts in the Zalani system. Each one is approximately 15 kilometers long." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. Ships that size were beyond anything the galaxy had ever built. Even the largest human dreadnoughts were only 3 kilometers long. Whatever these vessels were, they represented technology far beyond current galactic standards. "Ma'am, the signal is breaking up," Torres reported. Adjusting her controls frantically, the transmission flickered with static. Through the interference, they could hear Veltar speaking to someone in the background. His words were rushed and frightened. "The ships are changing formation. They are positioning themselves around our planet. The energy beams are intensifying. By the stars, what do they want from us?" Then came a sound that would haunt Sarah's dreams for years to come. It was Veltar screaming, not words, just pure terror and pain. The transmission cut to static. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Sarah stared at the communication panel, her hands clenched into fists. The Zalani had been humanity's first real friends in the galaxy. When the Galactic Council had debated whether to even allow contact with the dangerous Deathworlders, the Zalani had argued for acceptance. "Torres, get me Admiral Rivera immediately," Sarah ordered. "Yes, ma'am." Opening channel to the flagship. Admiral Marcus Rivera's weathered face appeared on the main screen within seconds. The old soldier had been fighting battles since before Sarah was born. His hair was gray, his face lined with scars, but his eyes were still sharp as steel. "I heard the transmission, Chen," Rivera said before Sarah could speak. "How fast can your ship reach the Zalani system?" "At maximum burn, 18 hours, sir." "But Admiral, we don't know what we're flying into. Those ships could be what?" Rivera interrupted. "Could be dangerous. Could be more advanced than us. Could be impossible odds." His voice grew louder with each word. "The Zalani are dying, Commander. They welcomed us when no one else would. They trusted us when the rest of the galaxy called us monsters." Sarah straightened her shoulders. She had served under Rivera for 5 years and knew that tone. The Admiral had made his decision. "Sir, the 7th Fleet only has 12 ships currently in this sector. If those unknown vessels are hostile, we'll be severely outnumbered." Rivera's eyes narrowed. "Commander, do you remember what the Zalani ambassador said when the Council was debating human membership? He said that a species willing to fight and die for strangers was exactly what the galaxy needed." The memory hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. She had been a young lieutenant then, watching the Council debates on the news feeds. Ambassador Veltar had stood before hundreds of alien representatives and defended humanity's right to join the galactic community. "Time to prove him right," Rivera continued. "Signal all ships in the fleet. Emergency combat stations. Maximum burn to the Zalani system. And Chen?" "Yes, sir." "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what's happening. If we don't make it back, someone needs to know that humans don't abandon their friends." The channel closed, leaving Sarah staring at the blank screen. Around her, the bridge erupted into activity as officers carried out emergency protocols. The ship's engines began to whine as they spun up to full power. "Ma'am, should I signal the crew for combat stations?" Torres asked. "Do it. And Torres, make sure everyone understands what we're flying into. This isn't a routine patrol or a show of force. This is a rescue mission against unknown enemies with superior technology. The alarm klaxons began to wail throughout the ship. Sarah could hear boots running in the corridors as 300 crew members rushed to their battle stations. The Indomitable was a tough ship, built in Earth's orbital shipyards with human engineering principles. It could take punishment that would destroy most alien vessels. But would it be enough? Sarah pulled up the tactical data on her personal display. The Zilani system was on the outer edge of the galaxy's spiral arm, far from any major military bases. Even if the Galactic Council decided to respond, it would take them days to assemble a fleet. Humanity's 7th Fleet would arrive first. 12 ships against 12 massive unknown vessels. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Commander, incoming message from the destroyer Wolverine, Torres reported. Put it through. Captain Rodriguez appeared on screen, her usually calm expression tight with worry. Sarah, my science officer has been analyzing the sensor data from the Zilani transmission. Those energy readings, they're off the charts. Whatever those ships are doing, it's requiring enormous amounts of power. Any theories? Nothing good. The energy pattern suggests some kind of matter conversion technology. If I had to guess, I'd say they're breaking down atomic structures. Sarah felt sick. Matter conversion weapons were theoretical technology that most species considered too dangerous to develop. The ability to break apart atoms could destroy entire planets. How long until we reach the system? She asked. 17 hours, 43 minutes at current speed, Torres answered from her station. Sarah nodded and opened a fleet-wide communication channel. On her screen, she could see the faces of 11 other ship commanders. Some were old veterans like herself. Others were young officers on their first deep space assignment. All of them looked determined. This is Commander Chen, you all heard the transmission. The Zilani are under attack by unknown forces with superior technology. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Anyone who wants to change course and wait for reinforcements can do so without any mark on their record. Not a single commander moved or spoke. Good, Sarah continued. Then let's go show these aliens why they call us Deathworlders. Chen out. As the human fleet raced through space toward the unknown, Sarah stood on her bridge and thought about Ambassador Veltar, the gentle alien who had believed that humans could be a force for good in the galaxy, who had trusted them despite their violent nature. Now it was time to prove that trust had not been misplaced. The stars stretched into lines as the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its crew toward whatever nightmare awaited in the Zilani system. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani system. What they saw made seasoned warriors stop breathing. 12 massive ships hung in space around the beautiful blue world of Zilani Prime. Each vessel was a perfect geometric shape, triangular, crystalline structures that caught and reflected the system's twin suns. They were enormous beyond anything the galaxy had ever built, each one dwarfing even the largest human dreadnoughts. But it was not their size that made Commander Sarah Chen's hands shake. It was what they were doing to the planet below. Dear God, whispered Lieutenant Torres from her sensor station. Ma'am, you need to see this. Sarah moved to Torres's station and looked at the readings. Her stomach dropped. The energy beams coming from the alien ships were not weapons in any traditional sense. They were something far worse. They're taking the planet apart, Torres said, her voice barely audible, molecule by molecule. On the main screen, they could see the alien beams hitting the planet's surface. Where they touched, the ground simply disappeared. Mountains, forests, cities. Everything was being converted into streams of glowing particles that flowed up toward the geometric ships. How many Zilani are down there? Sarah asked. Population was 8 billion before the attack, Torres replied. Current life signs. She paused, checking her instruments. 3 billion and falling rapidly. 5 billion Zilani had already died. Sarah felt rage building in her chest like a fire. These weren't soldiers dying in battle. These were civilians, families, children. The geometric ships were harvesting them along with everything else on the planet. Admiral Rivera is requesting immediate tactical conference, reported Communications Officer Park. The main screen split to show the commanders of all 12 human ships. Admiral Rivera's face was stone, but Sarah could see the fury burning in his eyes. Tactical assessment, Rivera said without preamble. Captain Martinez of the heavy cruiser Prometheus spoke first. 12 enemy vessels, each approximately 15 kilometers in length. Unknown armor composition, but sensor readings suggest dense crystalline structures. They're maintaining a perfect sphere formation around the planet. Weapons? Rivera asked. Those energy beams are not traditional weapons, Captain Rodriguez of the Wolverine replied. They appear to be matter conversion devices. They're literally eating the planet. Any response to our arrival? None, Martinez answered. They haven't even turned to look at us. Either they don't consider us a threat, or they're completely focused on their harvesting operation. Sarah studied the alien ships on her display. There was something cold and mechanical about their perfect formation. No deviation, no individuality. They moved with the precision of machines. Orders, sir? She asked. Rivera was quiet for a long moment. Sarah knew what he was thinking. 12 human ships against 12 massive alien vessels with unknown technology. The smart thing would be to fall back and wait for reinforcements. But while they waited, billions more Zilani would die. All ships, combat formation Alpha, Rivera finally said. We're going in. Captain Lee of the destroyer Cerberus looked shocked. Sir, we don't know anything about their capabilities. Shouldn't we observe first? While we observe, they're committing genocide, Rivera replied coldly. The Zilani welcomed us when no one else would. We don't abandon family. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Family. That was how Rivera saw their alien friends, not as political allies or trade partners, but as family worth dying for. Chen, take your ship and the destroyers in fast and low, Rivera ordered. Try to get between those ships and the planet. Maybe we can disrupt their harvesting beams. What about you, sir? The heavy ships will come in from above. We'll see if we can get their attention the old-fashioned way. Sarah knew what that meant. Rivera planned to start shooting and hoped the aliens would shoot back instead of continuing to harvest the planet. All ships acknowledge, Rivera said. And remember, we're not just fighting for the Zilani. If these things can take apart planets, nowhere in the galaxy is safe. Stop them here or fight them everywhere. The channel closed, leaving Sarah alone with her ship's destiny. She turned to her crew, seeing the fear and determination mixed on their faces. You heard the Admiral, she said. Helm, take us in. Best speed toward the planet. All weapons, prepare for combat. The Indomitable leaped forward, followed by the destroyers Wolverine and Cerberus. Behind them, the heavier ships of the fleet began their own approach. As they raced toward the alien formation, Sarah watched the tactical display. The geometric ships continued their work, apparently unaware that 12 human warships were bearing down on them. Ma'am, we're being scanned, Torres reported. Energy signature is unlike anything in our database. Any response to our approach? Nothing. They're still focused on the planet, Sarah frowned. Either these aliens were incredibly arrogant, or they truly did not see the human fleet as any kind of threat. Given the size difference, she couldn't blame them. Distance to nearest alien vessel? 50,000 kilometers in closing. Weapons range? 35,000 kilometers for main guns. Sarah watched the numbers tick down. At 20,000 kilometers, she expected some kind of response. At 15,000, she was certain the aliens would react. At 10,000 kilometers, she began to wonder if the geometric ships were even crewed. Within weapons range, reported Weapons Officer Kim. Fire, Sarah ordered. The Indomitable's main guns opened up, sending streams of plasma bolts toward the nearest geometric ship. The shots struck the crystalline hull and disappeared. Not reflected, not absorbed. Simply gone, as if they had never existed. What the hell? Kim muttered, checking his systems. Before anyone could answer, the geometric ship finally responded. It turned with fluid grace, revealing a surface covered in hexagonal patterns. A beam of silver light lanced out toward the Indomitable. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah shouted. The ship lurched to the side, its inertial dampeners screaming in protest. The silver beam passed through the space where they had been, and Sarah felt her hair stand on end from the energy discharge. Damage report. None, ma'am. We weren't hit. What about space around us? Torres checked her sensors and went pale. Ma'am, that beam... It's gone. The space where it passed, there's nothing there. Not even empty space. It's like reality was just erased. Sarah felt cold terror grip her heart. These aliens didn't just have advanced weapons. They had weapons that could delete matter from existence. If that beam had hit the Indomitable, her ship and crew would have simply ceased to be. All ships evasive patterns. She broadcast to the fleet. Do not let those beams hit you. They don't just destroy, they erase. On her tactical display, she watched as the geometric ships began to turn away from the planet. Whatever they were, they had decided the human fleet was worth their attention after all. The aliens moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single machine. Their formation shifted from a sphere around the planet to a battle line facing the approaching human ships. "Ma'am, Admiral Rivera is requesting another conference," Park reported. Rivera's face appeared on screen, along with the other ship commanders. His expression was grim. "New tactical assessment. Those beams will delete anything they hit. Standard evasion protocols. Stay mobile, stay unpredictable." "Sir," Captain Martinez interrupted. "What are we dealing with here? Those ships, the technology? It's beyond anything in galactic records." Sarah had been wondering the same thing. Then something clicked in her memory. Ancient stories. Legends that most species dismissed as myths. "The architects," she said quietly. Every face on the conference screen turned to her. "Commander?" Rivera asked. "The architects, sir. Ancient machine intelligence that supposedly built the first hyperspace gates. Most species think they're just legends. Machines," Rivera repeated slowly. "That would explain the perfect coordination, the lack of response to communication." "If they're really the architects," Sarah continued, "then they're millions of years old. Their technology would be beyond anything we can imagine." The implications hit everyone at once. They weren't just fighting advanced aliens. They were fighting gods of technology, beings that had been perfecting their craft since before any current galactic species had evolved. "Well," Rivera said finally, "I guess we'll find out what Death World evolution can do against million-year-old machines. All ships attack pattern Delta. Let's show these architects what humans fight like." As the order went out, Sarah watched the geometric ships power up more of their reality-erasing weapons. 12 human ships against 12 ancient war machines. The odds could not have been worse, but the Zilani were counting on them. And humans had never been good at backing down from impossible odds. The first volley from the architect ships lit up space like silver lightning. Commander Sarah Chen watched in horror as the destroyer Cerberus simply vanished. One moment Captain Lee was on her screen giving targeting coordinates. The next moment there was empty space where his ship had been. Not debris. Not wreckage, nothing. 300 human beings had just been erased from existence. "Wolverine reports successful evasion," Torres called out from her station. Prometheus took a glancing hit but is still operational. Sarah looked at her tactical display. Captain Martinez's heavy cruiser was missing its entire port side, the edges of the wound glowing with strange energy. But somehow the ship was still fighting, still moving. "How is Prometheus still intact?" she asked. "The beam only clipped them," Torres explained. "It looks like these weapons need direct hits to completely erase a target." That gave Sarah an idea. A desperate, probably suicidal idea, but it was better than watching her fleet get picked off one by one. "All ships, this is Chen. Constant acceleration changes. Don't fly straight for more than 3 seconds. Make yourself impossible to predict." She turned to her helmsman. "Petty Officer Davis, I want random course changes every 2 seconds. Use the manual controls, not the computer. Be human about it." Davis nodded and gripped the manual flight controls. The Indomitable suddenly jerked to starboard, then dove down, then rolled in a spiral that made Sarah's stomach lurch. "Ma'am, this is going to make it impossible to return accurate fire," Weapons Officer Kim pointed out. "Better than being erased from reality," Sarah replied. "Torres, are you tracking the architect targeting systems?" "Yes, ma'am. They're using some kind of quantum lock. They need approximately 4 seconds to establish a targeting solution. And we're changing course every 2 seconds," Sarah said with grim satisfaction. "They can't get a lock." On the tactical display, she watched as the other human ships began copying her maneuver. The neat military formations dissolved into what looked like complete chaos. Ships dove and rolled and spiraled through space like drunken fighters. It was completely against every rule of space combat. It was inefficient, unpredictable, and made coordinated attacks nearly impossible. It was also keeping them alive. "Ma'am, the architects are adjusting their formation," Torres reported. "They're trying to create overlapping fields of fire." Sarah studied the display. The geometric ships were moving into a complex 3-dimensional pattern that would let them cover every possible escape route. Their coordination was perfect, mechanical, inevitable, and that gave her another idea. "Get me Admiral Rivera." Rivera's face appeared on screen. Behind him, Sarah could see smoke and sparks flying from damaged systems. "Chen, whatever you're thinking, think faster. These bastards are adapting to our evasion patterns." "Sir, they're machines. They think like machines. Perfect coordination, mathematical precision. What if we stopped thinking like military officers? Rivera raised an eyebrow. Explain. What if we started thinking like Death World predators? Understanding dawned in Rivera's eyes. He had studied Earth's evolutionary history, knew about the pack hunters that had shaped human psychology. You want to attack like wolves, he said. Exactly. Wolves don't use formations or coordination. They use chaos, confusion, individual initiative. Each ship acts independently but toward the same goal. Rivera was quiet for a moment, considering. Around them, the battle continued. Silver beams lanced through space, missing human ships by meters as they twisted and dove. Do it, Rivera finally said. All ships break formation. Individual tactical discretion. Hunt like the predators we evolved from. The effect was immediate. The human fleet scattered like a pack of wild animals. Each ship began its own attack run, following its captain's instincts rather than military doctrine. Captain Rodriguez in the Wolverine dove straight toward the nearest architect ship, rolling and spinning to avoid the silver beams. At the last second, she fired all weapons and pulled up, raking the geometric hull with plasma fire. Captain Santos and the frigate Defiance came in from below, using the planet's gravity to slingshot around and attack from an unexpected angle. The destroyer Valkyrie and the cruiser Titan coordinated without orders, one ship drawing fire while the other attacked. Sarah watched it all and felt something primal stir in her chest. This was how humans had hunted on Earth for millions of years, not with perfect formations or mathematical precision, but with cunning and courage and the willingness to take insane risks. Ma'am, the architect ships are showing signs of confusion, Torres reported. Their targeting solutions are failing. They can't predict individual human behavior patterns. Because we're not behaving rationally, Sarah said with savage satisfaction. We're behaving human. But the architects were learning. As Sarah watched, one of the geometric ships began firing not at human ships, but at empty space where human ships might be in a few seconds. The heavy cruiser Prometheus flew directly into one of these predictive shots. The silver beam caught the ship amidships and began to erase it from existence. But Captain Martinez did something that no machine would ever expect. He rammed his dying ship directly into the architect vessel. The fusion reactors of the Prometheus detonated on impact, creating a fireball that lit up half the system. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But for the first time since the battle began, the humans had destroyed an architect vessel. Magnificent bastard, Rivera whispered over the comm. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. Martinez had just sacrificed himself and his crew of 800 people, but he had also proven that the architects could be hurt. All ships, ramming attacks are effective, she broadcast. I repeat, ramming attacks can destroy architect vessels. Ma'am, you're not seriously suggesting, Kim began. I'm not suggesting anything, Sarah replied. I'm stating a tactical fact. If we can't win with weapons, we win with our ships. The response from the fleet was immediate. Captain Chen of the destroyer Thunder announced she was making a ramming run. Her ship curved around an architect beam and drove straight toward the geometric hull. But the architects had learned from the first ramming attack. As Thunder approached, 3 different ships focused their beams on the destroyer. There was a flash of silver light, and Thunder simply ceased to exist. They're adapting, Torres said unnecessarily. Sarah watched as Captain Rodriguez tried her own ramming attack and barely escaped as multiple beams tracked her ship. The architects were now firing in coordination, creating kill zones that no human ship could survive. But humans had been adapting too. As Sarah watched, Captain Santos in the Defiance did something brilliant. Instead of making a direct ramming run, he fired his ship's entire missile complement at an architect vessel, then flew his ship into the missile swarm. The architects had to choose, target the missiles or target the ship. They chose the ship, erasing the Defiance from existence. But the missiles continued on their course and slammed into the geometric hull. The explosion was massive, but the architect ship survived. Its perfect crystalline surface was now cracked and bleeding atmosphere. It was wounded. Torres, scan that damaged ship. I want to know everything about those cracks. Ma'am, the damage appears to be spreading. Whatever those cracks are, they're growing. Sarah leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. The cracks were indeed spreading across the architect ship's hull like a virus. And where they spread, the ship's systems were failing. It's a cascade failure, she realized. Their hulls are designed to be perfect. Any imperfection spreads and multiplies. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships concentrate fire on damaged areas. Their hulls can't handle imperfection. Once you crack them, the damage spreads. The remaining human ships, only 7 were left, began focusing all fire on the wounded architect vessel. Plasma bolts and missiles hammered the spreading cracks. Within minutes, the entire ship was coming apart, its perfect geometry collapsing into chaos. 2 architect ships destroyed, 10 remaining. 7 human ships left, most of them damaged. But they had learned something important. The architects could be beaten. Their technology was advanced beyond human understanding, but it had weaknesses. Perfection was brittle. Chaos was strength. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the surface," Park reported. "Put it through." Ambassador Veltar's face appeared on screen. The gentle Zilani looked exhausted but alive. Behind him, Sarah could see other Zilani working frantically at what looked like an underground shelter. "Commander Chen, we are monitoring your battle. We cannot believe what you are doing. Your people are dying to save ours." "That's what friends do," Sarah replied simply. "We have been analyzing the architect technology while you fight. We believe we have discovered something important about their energy source." Sarah leaned forward. "Any intelligence about the architects could be vital. Tell me." "They are powered by the matter they consume. But the conversion process requires perfect efficiency. Any energy lost to combat reduces their harvest capacity. If you can force them to fight long enough..." Understanding hit Sarah like a physical blow. "They'll run out of power." "Yes, but Commander, you must know. There are more of them coming. Our deep space sensors detect additional architect fleets approaching other systems throughout the galaxy." Sarah felt ice in her veins. This wasn't just about the Zilani system. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 300 species sat in stunned silence as the tactical feeds from the Zilani system played on the main display. The images were impossible to process. Human ships, tiny by galactic standards, were literally throwing themselves at ancient war machines. The feeds showed the destroyer Thunder vanishing in silver light, followed immediately by Captain Chen announcing his ramming run without hesitation in his voice. Ambassador Kethvar of the Hreni Empire gripped his chair with all 4 arms. The Hreni prided themselves on being the galaxy's greatest warriors. They had conquered 17 systems through superior tactics and unbreakable discipline, but what they were watching defied every principle of military logic. "They are insane," whispered Representative Zixa of the Crystalline Collective. "No rational species would sacrifice themselves for another world." "Rational," repeated Council President Mordan slowly. The ancient ethereal leader had governed the galaxy for 2 centuries, but had never seen anything like this. Perhaps rationality is not the highest virtue after all. On the main screen, they watched Captain Rodriguez execute a suicide run that saved 2 other human ships. Her final transmission was broadcast throughout the council chamber. "Tell my kids I died fighting for something that mattered." The representative from the pacifist Harmony States stood up, his blue skin pale with shock. "Why are they doing this?" "The Zilani are not even their species. There are no treaties binding them to this course of action." Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Defense Force studied the tactical data with professional eyes. "They are using tactics that no military academy would teach. Individual ships acting without coordination, ramming attacks, deliberate sacrifice plays. It should not work." "But it is working," observed Dr. Yelna from the Science Council. "They have destroyed 2 architect vessels. The human ships are damaged, outnumbered, outgunned, but they continue fighting." President Morden activated his personal communicator. "Get me a direct channel to Earth Command. I want to speak with whoever is in charge of the human military." The response came within minutes. General Harrison, the head of Earth's defense forces, appeared on the chamber's main screen. His face was hard as stone, but his eyes showed the strain of watching his people die light years away. "President Morden," Harrison said with a slight nod, "I assume you're calling about the Zilani system. General, your fleet is engaging unknown hostiles without council authorization. Your losses are severe. I am ordering you to withdraw your forces immediately." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, aides moved frantically between displays showing the ongoing battle. "With respect, Mr. President, I don't take orders from the Council when it comes to protecting our friends." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No species had ever refused a direct order from the Council President. General, Mordan continued, your fleet cannot win. You are fighting an enemy with superior technology and numbers. Withdrawal is the only logical course. Logic, Harrison repeated with a bitter laugh. Mr. President, logic says that when your friend is in danger, you help them. Logic says that when genocidal machines threaten innocent people, you stop them. Logic says that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. Representative Zixa leaned forward. General, your species has always been emotional, but this level of sacrifice for non-humans is unprecedented. What do you hope to gain? Harrison looked directly at the camera, his eyes burning with intensity. We hope to gain something your species apparently doesn't understand. We hope to sleep at night knowing we didn't abandon our friends when they needed us most. The channel closed, leaving the council chamber in silence. President Morden activated the tactical displays again. The battle was still raging. Only 6 human ships remained now, but they continued their impossible fight against 8 architect vessels. Sir, said Admiral Vextar quietly, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. More architect fleets have been detected. 17 systems are under threat. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. This wasn't an isolated attack on the Zilani. This was the beginning of a galaxy-wide harvest. How long until our fleets can respond? Morden asked. 48 hours minimum for the nearest systems. Some of the outer territories. Days or weeks. President Morden studied the tactical feeds again. In 48 hours, billions would be dead. Entire worlds would be consumed. Sir, Admiral Vextar continued, we're receiving strange reports from our monitoring stations. Multiple species are mobilizing their fleets without authorization. What do you mean? The Vorthak are launching their entire crystal fleet. The Nithari have somehow militarized their energy forms. Even the Harmony states are arming their hospital ships. On the display screens around the chamber, new tactical feeds began appearing. The crystalline ships of the Vorthak were indeed moving, their beautiful forms now bristling with weapons. The energy beings of the Nithari had somehow condensed themselves into mobile forms that pulsed with power. Why? President Morden asked. Why are they mobilizing? Dr. Yilna pulled up her analysis reports. Sir, I've been monitoring galactic communications networks. The human battle is being broadcast on emergency frequencies. Every species in the galaxy is watching 12 human ships sacrifice themselves for the Zilani. And it's having an effect. Species that have never cooperated are talking about joint operations. Military doctrine that has remained unchanged for centuries is being rewritten in real time. Representative Kethvar stood up, his forearms spread wide. The humans are showing us what we have forgotten. They are showing us what it means to fight for something greater than ourselves. The Hreni Empire hereby pledges our fleet to the defense of any system threatened by these architects, he announced formally. The declaration sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Hreni had not fought alongside other species for 300 years. One by one, other representatives began to stand. The Crystalline Collective offers our manufacturing capabilities for rapid ship construction. The Harmony states will provide medical support for wounded crews. The Nithari pledge our energy manipulation abilities, President. Morden watched in amazement as his carefully ordered galaxy transformed before his eyes. Species that had barely tolerated each other were volunteering to fight together, all because a handful of human ships had chosen to stand and fight rather than run away. Sir, Admiral Vextar said urgently, we're receiving a transmission from the Zilani system. It's from Commander Chen. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main screen. Her ship's bridge was wreathed in smoke, sparks flying from damaged systems. Half her crew was dead or wounded, but her eyes were steady and determined. This is Commander Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. To any Council forces receiving this transmission, be advised that the Architect vessels can be destroyed. Ramming attacks are effective. Concentrated fire on damaged hull sections causes cascade failures. They are not invincible. She paused, looking directly at the camera. We have confirmed that additional Architect fleets are approaching other systems throughout the galaxy. This is not an isolated attack. This is a coordinated harvest operation targeting all inhabited worlds. The chamber was dead silent. The human fleet will continue to engage the enemy until we are destroyed or they are defeated. We will not withdraw. We will not abandon the Zilani. And we will not let these machines harvest our galaxy without a fight. Static interfered with the signal as Chen's ship took another hit. To any species listening to this transmission, remember that we are all in this together. Human, Zilani, Hreni, Vorthak. We are all children of the same galaxy, and no one harvests our family while we still breathe. The transmission cut to static, leaving the council chamber in profound silence. President Mordan stood slowly, his ancient form seeming to carry the weight of the galaxy. Admiral Vextar, he said formally, mobilize the entire Galactic Defense Force, emergency protocols. Maximum burn to all threatened systems. Sir, that will take every ship we have. It will leave the core systems defenseless. Admiral, 12 human ships are currently holding the line against an enemy that could destroy our entire civilization. I think we can manage to show the same courage they are. The chamber erupted in activity as representatives began coordinating their species' military responses. For the first time in galactic history, hundreds of different races were working together toward a single goal, all because a handful of humans had refused to abandon their friends. On the tactical displays, the battle in the Zilani system continued. Only 5 human ships remained now, but they were still fighting. Still believing that impossible odds could be overcome through determination and sacrifice. The galaxy was learning what it meant to be human, and the architects were about to discover that their perfect calculations had not accounted for the power of species willing to die for strangers. Commander Sarah Chen gripped her command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under another near miss. Only 4 human ships remained in the battle zone. Her own vessel, Admiral Rivera's flagship, Captain Rodriguez's battered Wolverine, and the destroyer Valiant under Captain Kim. 8 architect ships still hung in space around Zilani Prime, their perfect geometric forms now showing scars from the prolonged battle, but they were learning, adapting, becoming more efficient with each exchange. Their silver beams were tracking human ships with increasing accuracy. Ma'am, structural integrity is at 40%. Torres reported from her station. We can't take many more hits. Sarah nodded grimly. They had been fighting for 6 hours now. 6 hours of impossible maneuvers, desperate attacks, and watching friends die. The mathematics were simple. They were going to lose, but the Zilani were still alive. 3 billion survivors were huddled in underground shelters, while the harvest beams continued to strip away their world's surface. Every minute the human fleet continued fighting was another minute for evacuations, another 1,000 lives saved. Admiral Rivera on priority channel, Park announced. Rivera's face appeared on screen. The old soldier looked exhausted, his uniform torn and bloody from a console explosion, but his eyes were still fierce. Chen, my engineering officer, tells me we've got maybe 20 minutes before total systems failure. What's your status? About the same, sir. We're running on backup power and stubborn determination. Rivera almost smiled at that. Good, because I just received word from Earth Command. The entire galaxy is mobilizing. Every species, every fleet. They're coming to help. Sarah felt a surge of hope, quickly followed by crushing reality. How long until they arrive? First reinforcements are still 18 hours out. The Vorthak crystal ships are pushing maximum speed, but they're coming from the other side of the galaxy. 18 hours. Sarah looked at her tactical display. The human ships would be lucky to last 18 minutes against the remaining architects. Sir, we need to hold until help arrives. But I don't see how— I do, Rivera interrupted. Chen, we've been fighting like we're trying to win. But that's not our mission anymore. Our mission is to buy time. Understanding hit Sarah like lightning. Rivera was right. They didn't need to destroy the architects. They just needed to keep them busy until the galactic fleet arrived. All ships, Rivera broadcast. New tactical doctrine. We're not trying to win anymore. We're trying to survive long enough for the cavalry to arrive. Maximum evasion. Hit and run. Make them chase us. The effect was immediate. The 4 remaining human ships scattered in different directions, forcing the architects to split their attention. Instead of making attack runs, they began playing a deadly game of cat and mouse among the asteroids and debris of the outer system. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. This feels like cheating. We're just running away. We're not running away, Sarah replied. We're being really annoying, and they were. The architects, who had been perfectly efficient at harvesting the planet, were now forced to chase down individual human ships across an entire star system. Their perfect coordination was useless against an enemy that refused to stand still and fight properly. For 2 hours, the deadly game continued. The human ships darted between asteroids, used gas giant gravity wells to slingshot away from pursuit, and generally made themselves as difficult to catch as possible. But the architects were learning even this new pattern. Slowly, methodically, they began to predict human evasion routes. The net was closing. "Ma'am, we're getting emergency signals from the surface," Torres reported. "Ambassador Veltar wants to speak with you." The Zalani's face appeared on screen. He looked terrible, exhausted, frightened, but somehow determined. "Commander Chen, our scientists have been studying the architect technology while you fight. We believe we have found something. Tell me, the ships are not independent. They are all connected through quantum links. They share information instantaneously across their entire fleet." Sarah frowned. "That explains their perfect coordination. But how does that help us? Because quantum links work both ways. If we could introduce false information into their network, we could confuse their entire fleet," Sarah finished. "What do you need?" "One of your ships would need to make physical contact with an architect vessel. Our quantum virus could be transmitted through hull contact." Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Physical contact meant ramming, and with only 4 ships left, losing one would leave them helpless. "I'll do it," came Admiral Rivera's voice over the comm. "The flagship has the heaviest armor. Best chance of surviving long enough to make contact." "Sir, no," Sarah protested. "There has to be another way. Chen, I'm an old man who's been fighting battles since before you were born. This is what I'm good at. Taking care of my people." Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew that tone. Rivera had made his decision. "Ambassador Veltar, transmit your virus to Admiral Rivera's ship. All other vessels provide covering fire." What happened next would be remembered in military academies across the galaxy for generations. Admiral Rivera's flagship, the massive dreadnought Endeavor, began a final charge toward the center of the Architect formation. 8 Architect ships focused their reality-erasing beams on the approaching human vessel. The Endeavor's armor began to dissolve under the concentrated fire, entire sections of the ship simply ceasing to exist. But Rivera kept coming. His ship was falling apart around him, atmosphere streaming from 100 breaches, but he maintained course toward the largest Architect vessel. "For Earth," Rivera transmitted on open frequency. "For the Zalani. For the galaxy." The Endeavor struck the Architect ship at full ramming speed. The collision was titanic, visible even from the planet's surface. Both vessels crumpled together in a ball of twisted metal and energy discharges. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the quantum virus began to spread. The effect was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The remaining 7 Architect ships suddenly stopped moving in coordination. They began firing at empty space, chasing targets that weren't there, sometimes even shooting at each other. "The virus is working," Torres reported excitedly. "Their quantum network is feeding them false sensor data. They don't know what's real anymore." Sarah watched in amazement as the ancient war machines, which had operated with perfect efficiency for millions of years, began to behave like confused animals. Their reality-erasing beams lanced out randomly, striking asteroids, empty space, and occasionally each other. "Ma'am, long-range sensors are detecting new contacts," Torres announced. "Multiple fleets dropping out of hyperspace throughout the system." On the tactical display, friendly contacts began appearing. Crystal ships from the Vorthak Collective, energy beings from the Nethari states, heavily armed hospital ships from the Harmony worlds. Dozens of fleets from dozens of species all arriving to join the fight. The first to engage were the Vorthak crystal ships. Sarah watched in fascination as they used ramming tactics copied directly from human doctrine, but their crystalline hulls were far more durable than human metal, and they could survive impacts that would destroy normal vessels. The Nethari energy beings did something even more remarkable. They somehow merged with the Architect ship's power systems, causing massive feedback loops that tore the ancient vessels apart from within. "Commander Chen," came a new voice over the comm. "This is Captain Zethka of the Hreni battlecruiser Conquest. We have studied your tactical reports. Permission to engage the enemy using human doctrine?" Sarah almost laughed. The proud Hreni, who had always fought with rigid military precision, were asking permission to fight like chaotic deathworlders. "Permission granted, Captain. Show them what you learned from watching us." The Hreni ships dove into the battle with a ferocity that surprised even Sarah. They had somehow modified their tactics to include the unpredictable, individual initiative that made human crews so effective. Within an hour, the tide of battle had completely reversed. The confused Architect ships, still struggling with the quantum virus, were being torn apart by a coordinated galactic fleet that fought with human-inspired tactics. The last architect vessel was destroyed by a joint ramming attack. A Vorthak crystal ship and an Athari, energy being working together to crush the geometric whole. Sarah sat in her command chair, hardly believing it was over. Around her, the bridge crew was cheering, but she felt only exhaustion and grief for the friends they had lost. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Fleet," Torres reported. President Mordan's face appeared